So, in today's video, I wanted to talk about whether it's just me or are we living in a microwaveable society. You know, for some of you who may want me to elaborate more, think about how, for some of you who may go to the store and instead of buying, when you buy groceries, instead of buying food items that you could actually cook from scratch, even if you may buy something that's more so of an instant meal that you may have to cook right out of the box. For instance, for let's just say, for instance, either some rice or hamburger helper, you would prefer to instead of cooking it in an actual pot, you would prefer to cook it, some of us, in a microwave, just to prevent from having to wait that much more longer for the meal to be prepared. With that being said, even when it comes to relationships, we are living in a microwavable society. I call them microwavable relationships. Whereas compared to back in the days, whereas you would meet somebody of the opposite sex, you would first court that person, and some of the older people or elderly people would call it. And what I mean by that is the two of you may happen to meet in person way back before all this social media and before cell phones became so popular. And then after meeting that person in person, the two of you were to start talking on the phone and would talk for hours. And I'm talking about back, not during the modern days, whereas so many people have cell phones or wireless phones, but back during the days when more of us had landlines, some with the long cord that could, in some cases, extend from one room to another in the house, and we will fight our siblings over the use, or some of our cousins or whatnot who may have spent the night with us whenever we would have sleepovers, to the landlines that they started making with the retractable antennas, if you know what I mean. Anyways, after talking on the phone to that person who you may have started to hit it off with, or the opposite sex, and talking to them for so many hours, you would eventually begin to meet that person's parents and vice versa. And it would usually be up, in most cases, for your parents to approve of whether they may want you to be with that person, whether they may think that that person is a compatible mate for you, and vice versa. Then the two of you will eventually start to date more. If a parent may have approved of you being with that person, or vice versa, the two of you may start to date, eventually become serious, become engaged, and then marry. Whereas nowadays, it's an all free-for-all compared to those days, whereas most people nowadays believe in meeting a strange person off of a dating/online app, and after exchanging text messages, what it may be in the form of pictures, because either way it goes, you usually get the chance to see the person's profile pictures, just to see how attracted you may be to that person, and vice versa. And the two of you may happen to either swipe left or right, whatever it means, whenever you may be attracted to that certain person on one of these modern day dating apps. After being attracted, showing that person how much attracted you may be to them, and vice versa, the two of you may eventually start exchanging DMs, and then in some cases may start exchanging inappropriate text messages, including in the forms of pictures with one another, only to eventually meet each other in person, and then strictly just want to engage in sexual intercourse with the other person. That's a perfect example of how we are living in a microwavable society. Or how about back in the days when we used to have to mail bill payments on an actual sheet of paper in the mail, in an envelope, with a postage stamp on the envelope. and will have to, in some cases, wait as long as a week for that payment to get processed. Now, in some cases, the elderly people believe in paying bills that way, but what about compared to back then, how you would have to, in some instances, wait upwards to a week to be able to send a payment to whichever creditor you may have owed a payment to or debtor. And so nowadays, you could be able to make a payment within the palm of your own hands with your cell phone. And that payment, in some cases, may be able to be processed or authorized within the same day. This is another example of how we are living in such a microwaveable society, to the point where more and more people have become lazy and entitled. And what about the days whereas whenever we would go to the grocery store, before they had all these self-checkout registers, we would have to wait in long lines for so many minutes. In some cases, as long as an hour. Compared to nowadays, when you go to most grocery stores, now especially every Walmart, either every Walmart or Target store, you could be able to be your very own cashier and be able to speed up the checkout process that much more. You could also call it express checkout without having to deal with an actual employee at the store, or having to wait in a line not nearly as long as before they started building these self-service checkout machines in stores like they have nowadays. Don't get me wrong, they still have physical cashiers at the same time, but after paying close attention, I have noticed how ever since self-service checkout registers were invented, more people have preferred that method as opposed to going to an actual person to ring up their items. Or how about how nowadays we're living in such a microwavable society, and we have become so lazy, so entitled, to the point where back in the days we used to have to order food. Well, not instead of order food, we'll have to go to an actual restaurant to pick up the food instead of ordering food online by the likes of either off of a computer, whether it may be either a desktop, a laptop, or tablet, or a smartphone, and have it to deliver to you right at your doorstep or wherever you may be. That's another example of how we are living in such a microwavable society, to the point where people have become so comfortable when living in such a microwavable, fast-paced society, to the point it makes, for the people my age, is 40 plus, it kind of makes you wish sometimes that things would go back to the old days, whereas we would have to be able to interact more with people in person. Because nowadays we don't even much have to interact with people in person anymore. I could give you a prime example. Okay, there are people in my neighborhood who I have noticed order food through online apps, food apps. And now, ever since the pandemic, the COVID-19 pandemic took place a few years back, I noticed how as soon as that transpired, more people, because I was a gig economy driver at one while, more people started requesting no contact deliveries, whereas you could be able to have the food dropped off at your doorstep without having to have any kind of interaction with the delivery driver or delivery person at all, which to me is strange. Even until this day, though, I have noticed how more people prefer that method. Believe it or not, although the pandemic is sort of overwhelmed, but at the same time it's sort of not overwhelmed, because there are still certain strains of the COVID-19 pandemic that still are becoming more prevalent off and on. Anyways, let me know what y'all think by leaving your comments right down below. Make sure you also smash that like button. Make sure you share this video. Last but not least, subscribe to the channel. And until next time, I'm out.